Buongiorno a tutti, felice di
Good morning, everyone.
questi schermi.
I am really happy
Stiamo
that I can
rivedere
see you in front of me on my computer screen.
l'esatto del progetto Transfer.
We're meeting
Durante
today
questo anno
as
abbiamo
part of the
concentrato
second
soprattutto quella
meeting
che è
in the
stata
transfer
la
project.
parte
This
di
year,
ricerca
we
del
focused
progetto.
mainly
Tutti
on
quanti voi, insomma, si sono
on one
adoperati
part
per
of our project, which was a
seguire le
research.
imprese e mandare i propri report.
We all
Adesso
conducted
iniziamo
research in our countries and
l'implementazione,
then we
insomma,
prepared
qui
national reports.
ci concentreremo
Now we are
soprattutto
starting
lavoro
the
3
second year
che
of
si
our
leggerà
project and we will be
la
focusing
presentazione
on
delle
the
proposte
work package 3.
internazionali e lo scambio delle buone pratiche
Work
per
package 3
portarci a
is
leggere le
about
nostre pubblicazioni finali sul
European
progetto.
level
E,
consultations and exchange
è
of
stato un
best
anno intenso di lavoro,
practices
ma
in our
diciamo che
project
è un mese
and
che
among
ha dato
project
risultato
participants.
e grazie alla
In my
collaborazione di tutti voi.
opinion, we
Nella
have
giornata
the
di
first
oggi insomma
deliverables of our project, and
leggerò
it's all thanks to the collaboration
quello
between
che è
the
stato
project
il
partners.
lavoro, quali
So,
sono
what is
state
the plan
le
for today?
raccomandazioni nazionali
First, Giancarlo will sum up what we have done so far.
questi
He
leggi
will share the findings
per
from
ottimizzare
national research and we will
l'attuazione
discuss the findings.
del progetto.
Next, we will think
Per
about
adesso,
the next
insomma,
steps for
io
this
non ho altro da
project.
aggiungere se non darvi il benvenuto a nome di FAST
For the time
e
being,
darò a
that's all from
Giancarlo
me. I just wanted to say hello to all of you on behalf of FAST. And now I am giving the floor
Good
to
morning.
Giancarlo, who is our expert.
To talk in English, I hope that's not a problem for the translator. I am familiar with aviation English, a bit less with plain English, but I think there is no problem. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I don't have to add nothing to the wise words said by Giorgio. All of you produce an excellent report. It was really interesting and it was interesting to read as well. I don't think it was boring and it wasn't boring, but it was hard because both me and George had to change our mindset to consider the different political and social situation in each country. And only after this change of mindset, we could understand exactly the real situation. Your report, as I told, was very, very detailed, and we have highlighted some common point among the five different countries we are going to analyze, and some difference. The difference are due to the different history each country has had, not only about the political history, but also about the aviation market history, because in some country aviation had a long tradition, also 100 years tradition, long time of tradition. In some other countries, a very, very recent development of the activities. I hope the translator is not complaining about the speed of my speech. In case, please advise me if I'm speaking too fast. And as Giorgio said, we are here to start the second year of this project. The first year was focused on the confrontation to define a methodology for the research. We did it when we were in Krakow, and we at the end produced I think it was a really interesting and well done research method. The questionnaire was very interesting, and not only because it was focused on the toolbox. I was one of those that drafted the toolbox originally within the air traffic management world, but also because we try to find a solution to export as much as possible of the toolbox in other different branches of aviation. Air traffic management, where I come from, is a mature sector, so the relations are very, very tight and based on a strict code of rules. But in other field of aviation, like handling or airline as well, the world is based on different rules. This has been highlighted by some of you. The B2B model of the agreement between worker and company is becoming always more expanded within the sector. And those of you that highlighted that also highlighted the problem this is creating for the social relation among the parties, because there is no more double-side confrontation between the employer and the employees, but there is the employer and a bunch of individuals working on individual basis, and this is creating the problem in the model of social relation we used to have before. I would like to thank you, all of you, for the drafting of the report, and I would like to thank all of you for the effort done in making the research, because I did it personally in Italy, and I know how it's hard to convince people, especially workers, especially industry representative, to give a written explanation to their answer. They don't want to be involved because they're always scared about the possible reaction of the company. And in Italy, we overcome that going via telephone conversation, going via telephone interview. But I don't know if in Bulgaria, Romania, and Poland, and Montenegro, it was the same. But at the end, each of you made a good report, and very, very interesting, plenty of interesting data to be analyzed all together. The first question I have is, did all of you receive the other countries' report, or you only know your country report? Giorgio, do you confirm that all the attendants have received all the report made by the other countries?
No, in realtà il report non ancora, in realtà i partecipanti non hanno ancora ricevuto
No, unfortunately not.
i nostri
Right now, we are in the process of publishing the reports,
però sì,
and
potete
simply,
trovarli adesso.
in some cases, the graphic design hasn't been completed yet. But right now, in the chat window, I will provide a link to the website where all the projects will be downloadable. Sorry, all the reports will be available for downloading.
Ok, vi ho inviato nella chat il link
So, in the chat, there is a link to the website of our project. And there you will find all the materials that are available. Some reports will still need to be amended, for example, the report from Bulgaria. But this link will always take you to a website where you will find up-to-date information and materials from this project. So we always make them available also in our social media channels. So I think it's a good idea for you to like our profile in social media, because this is where we are going to publish the materials as well, and perhaps we could use the materials to promote this project.
Thank you, Giorgio. Sorry, I was taking some note because I have to remember everything. Yes, please, starting from myself, please let us follow the social media channels we have established for the project. Not only because it's trendy to have a social media channel, but also because it's really a repository of all the material produced. We didn't produce too much material, so it won't be boring activity to be updated with that, but will be just simple activity. Each of us could read and inform about the situation in the countries, in the partners countries, so that it will be very useful for each of us to develop a new model and new idea in the field of social dialogue. Most of us come from the worker side, but also from the employer side. It's interesting to have a first-hand data about how the social dialogue is performed in different countries. So I would like to start with you about a recap of what has been produced by different countries and which are the common points, the common elements of the research produced. The questionnaire was submitted by each of you in 40 different respondents, 20 from the unions and 20 from the employer. I can imagine how hard it was because I knew it by first hand. I was the one that to submit the questionnaire to the workers, and I was lucky because I live not too far from the airport, so I had the possibility to attend the union's headquarters because it's one quarter hour driving from my house. But in case some of you is far from the airport or from the activities tight, I know how much it was hard. We have. I will jump. If you have seen the agenda, there is a point that is about the SWOT analysis, the model to compare the result and its outcomes. But I think I will jump directly to that because the agenda has been divided in different steps only to have a better idea how to work. But there are no comparted rooms where we cannot talk before the scheduled time. So in the SWOT analysis we produce after receiving your report, we have seen some common elements. The common elements is that it seems to be obvious, but it's not. There is a legal recognition of the rights of trade union in each country. This is important because also countries that are now, like Montenegro, now applying to become a full member of the European Union, and I hope it will happen as soon as possible. They have to adapt their own constitution to the chart of the rights of the European citizen. Among these rights, there is the rights to have the freedom to associate in trade unions and the freedom to bargain the rights as a worker. So each of you has answered that, okay, there are these constitutional rights, but there is also an openness to formalize this kind of relation among the parts. So once the rights have been established by the main law of the country, the constitution, those rights have to be deployed in actual way of communicated, to a way of bargaining for the rights of the workers. And this is the way why we suggest you to formalize a code of practice or a written agreement and to better define the field where it was possible to discuss. I know that it's not possible for the workers to decide the policy of the enterprise because it's a responsibility of the manager. But I know that the workers have to be informed about which will be the policy taken by the enterprise and which will be the follow-up and the fallout of this activity on the workers. And so it's having these written agreements will allow to the parts to have an open discussion, also in defining a better understanding, a fine-tuning of the future activities of the enterprise. In all countries, there is a strong presence of trade unions, not only in Italy and in Poland, that are the largest country in terms of population, but also in Montenegro, that is the smallest in size compared to the other four. There is a strong trade union, so it's easier for the counterpart to have a formalized dialogue. And the aviation sector in all the 5 countries has shown an important grow up after the COVID, post-COVID. The COVID was really, I don't know how to say, it was a really nightmare period for all of us. But after that, it is impacted very hardly on each of us, and not only on us as individuals, but also as trade union, because it was a period where connectivity was suspended, where there was not possible to move, and the aviation was used only for the purpose of fighting this pandemic. So after COVID, the people has once again showed the willingness to fly, probably more than before, because we experienced what was meaning and not to be possible to fly, not to be possible to leave our house. And we say, no, we don't want to live in a world where we cannot do that. After the COVID was, I don't say defeated, but contained, people started to fly like we never did before. So the aviation, that is the most important connection means across Europe. Europe is a huge continent, so to connect people, it's important to have a fast, reliable, and economic, cheap, I would say, but they are not cheap, way of connection. The aviation has immediately reached the pre-COVID level. It was expected. I remember the first revision made by Eurocontrol. We were talking about a 7-year period to go back to the pre-COVID period. And in 2 years, we reached that level. And since 2024, each country is overcoming the pre-COVID activity. Also in Montenegro, sorry, I always talk about Montenegro, but it's a country with hundreds of thousands of population. They had reached in the 2 airports 3 million of passengers. That means that multiplying factor of 4 per time, because it means that like every citizen of the country, I know that it was not citizens, it was for tourism, but to give you comparison scale, it was like every citizen of the country was flying 4 times per year, and it's an incredible result. No one was expecting that, and the industry in the world, the companies and the workers have reacted in an excellent way, with some difficulty, of course, because we don't have to hide that, but the result of the effort, of the joint effort, was important. Was really, really remarkable. So these are the main commons, the main strength of the aviation sector. But there is also some weakness in the aviation sector in social dialogue. These weaknesses are the poor level of communication among the 2 sides, among the trade unions, among the worker representatives and the employer representative. There is communication, but not always it's an open communication, a proactive communication. It's just tick the box communication. So the airlines the industries are forced to communicate to the workers, but they do it just because they are forced, and not because they think this is an added value. There is a kind of fragmentation among the trade unions. Countries like Italy and Poland, there are a dozen of big unions. There are 2 or 3 larger than the others, but there are a dozen of big unions. So also for the industry, for the airline representative, it's hard to have a productive communication, because any communication has to be done to all the representatives of all the different unions. I'm not talking this is a good or this is bad. I'm just talking about the fact. The fact is that there are a lot of unions luckily, there is the possibility to join freely which unions any worker prefer, but this is counterproductive for the communication. In some country, there is this kind of use of atypical contractual forms. We can say in aviation is starting to have the so-called gig work, not for the high professional like pilots, crew members, traffic controller, technician, because this profession need to have a European license. But for those work that don't have this necessity to have the European license, like handlers and so on, the use of this gig works, the Uberization of the contract is becoming larger and larger. And the possibility at the end, another weakness of the system is the low usage of alternative dispute resolution means. We have talked about the alternative dispute resolution. That means for external mediator, internal mediator inside the company for large company, and external mediator when the company is smaller. But in our countries, in the 5 countries, we have been analyzing this model that is typical from the Anglo-Saxon and the Northern Europe world. This model is less used. At the end, these are the 2 main aspects: the strength of the system and the weakness of the system of the social dialogue in Europe. Now we could see the opportunities given by the European Commission, by the intention of the European Commission to expand and harmonize these words of these fields, the social dialogue fields, gives us the opportunity to harmonize. We know that each country has a different legal system. Most of us, I can say all of us, have the so-called civil law system where there is a law and the rights are becoming from the law, while in Anglo-Saxon world there is more used the common law when there is the judge to establish a law with this sentence. So this is easier for us to establish, to harmonize the standards to the European Union standards. This is more important because the sector is going towards a fast transformation due to the digitalization. The digitalization will ask us to change our way of interacting with the counterpart because new works will be done not in the headquarters, but will be done from remote and sometimes from different countries. So we have to allow these workers from different countries to have the same right of the national workers. Otherwise, they will be lead to a erosion of the rights of the national workers. And we hope that both sides are interested in further expand the social counter activity and to expand also the importance of the alternative resolution bodies like compensation rooms or so on. But from the other side, we also see that there is a certain part of industry that is leading towards a reduction of the rights of the workers, because rights of workers means more money to be put on social dialogue, and they don't want to do that. And we have to find a balanced way because as COVID has shown us, our sector is really dependent on some factors that are out of the possibility to be managed by the industry. So we are experiencing what is going on in Eastern Europe countries due to the war between Russia and Ukraine. A lot of flights that were now were before flying over the country have decided to shift westbound to avoid the potentially risky area. and how this impact on the workers and how this impact on the industry has to be regulated. We ask to have a disaster recovery agreement. And last things we want to talk about is the fact that there is a kind of risk that the social dialogue is only activated when there is this emergency, when we are in crisis time. Companies are forced to seek the confrontation with social partners, while in normal parts, when it's a period of good work, they don't need that because they are too much focused on earning more money than they can. So I hope that you understood my poor plain English, but I would like to have your opinion on these four main areas: the strength, the weakness, and the opportunities and the threats of this social dialogue. Giorgio, you think we can start with asking to the representative of the four different countries how it was perceived in their country?
Giancarlo, scusa, hai chiesto ai partecipanti di dare il loro contributo, no?
Giancarlo, did I get it right that you've asked individual representatives of, you've asked them to present the report?
Ah, ok,
After my presentation, we could start to ask them what was the final perception they had after drafting the report, the national report.
Ah, sì, certo, mi sembra una buona idea, direi di fare
Yes, of course. I think it is a great idea, and
per sentire le loro
now
opinioni.
it is time to listen to individual representatives, and they will present their opinions, their perceptions, and their situations. So, do we have any volunteers? The first person who would like to speak? Let's say it might be a volunteer.
The first to give, otherwise I will draft one of you and it will be myself to give you the floor. We can follow the alphabetical order, so I think that Bulgaria will be the first one. We have Ivan and Miroslava from Bulgaria. So if you please can give us your opinion about the report you produced from your country. We read it as the deepest possible. We have some problem with the translation, so I probably skipped some part, but I think that it was well detailed and well clear to give us sufficient hints for the drafting of the recap I did last week. So Miroslava, can you give us some words about that?
Уважаеми колеги, здравейте! Надявам се, че ме чувате добре. Имам удоволствието да представя
All right, so good morning. I will talk about our report and results of the studies that we carried out in our country. A social dialogue in the aviation sector in our country. We received very interesting results. The study focused on the condition of social dialogue in the aviation sector. Apart from that, there was an analysis carried out of the participation mechanism for employees in this sector. There are good practices there, but obviously there are problems like in other countries, but we've also described challenges that we are facing. And finally, our document includes recommendations which aim at improving these relations. And perhaps I will have a chance to show you my presentation so that you can see also some visual information referring to our study. I hope everyone can see that. You can see my presentation on your screen. So, our sector has been developing very dynamically after the pandemic.
And this is mainly due to tourism. So after the COVID pandemic, we have also seen a huge increase in air traffic. We have 5 airports, but 4 of them are main airports: Sofia, Varna, Burgas and Plovdiv. And so most of them are passenger airports, but Sofia also handles cargo traffic. You can see some seasonality in air traffic in our country. In winter and in summer, there are more flights. But low-fare airlines are dominating our market. Of course, we have a national airline, and it has quite a huge headcount. And many companies are engaged in this sector. And you can see that the air traffic is really busy in our country. And the air traffic has increased 20% over the last 5 years. And the structure of flights is similar to what happens in Europe. So cargo flights, passenger flights, and also chartered flights are present in our countries. So in Burgas, the air traffic has increased 40%. That means the air traffic in our country is largely dependent on tourism. And this sector has a huge share of our economy. And of course, it represents quite a large portion of internal traffic. So 5 to 6% of all transport in our country is simply air traffic, and we have seen 1 percentage point increase in that. And also, this traffic is mostly associated with tourism and logistics. The companies that work in the aviation sector, for example, the companies that offer warehouse space or that, for example, dispatch parcels, they represent 5% of companies in our country, and they have 7% of all the workforce in our country. When you look at the registered entities providing ground services, then at the time of our research, 33 companies were present in that register. So, as my colleagues mentioned, we can see that the number of passengers served in our country is increasing, and it has increased over 45%. So we are seeing a 45% increase in the period 2014-2024. So in the period of 10 years, it has increased by 45%. Also, a lot of cargo is being handled in this sector. In 2017, we had a record number of cargo handled in Bulgaria, and this hasn't reached the level achieved in 2017 ever since. So the airlines, the carriers operating in Bulgaria, actually include 18 companies, and they provide air flights. And there are 11 companies that provide air transport, and nine of them represent passenger traffic, and 2 of them cargo. So the aircraft that the Bulgarian companies have include 78 units, and aircraft are a very important part of our economy. And what are the challenges present in our country? Based on our research and based on the report findings, we can see the market is very dynamic. It is deregulated, it is very liberal, our market, but the low-fare airlines are very popular, so they dominate the market. And this affects the whole market. Another challenge we highlighted are very unfavorable time shifts. So this work is really stressful. It requires a lot of concentration. So right now, if the scheduling is not right, this also affects negatively people. Also, people who work outdoors are also subject to some negative factors, such as poor weather conditions. People employed in this sector are exposed to high risk to their own safety. And we can see that also the salary levels are not satisfactory in this sector. Some of the respondents pointed out to the lack of personal protective equipment. Trade unions are only present in larger companies, and they are absent in smaller companies, for example, the ones providing ground services. So there are no trade unions in the ground service companies. And of course, this affects their employment conditions. We are trying to be more environmentally friendly in our aviation sector. All right, let me now move on to the topic of social dialogue in the air transport sector. So, we have agreements in place that regulate the scheduling, additional salaries, holidays, paid leaves. So these agreements are concluded at the company level, and they also regulate the compensation and also insurance and working conditions. So far, we haven't had a collective agreement in the air transport sector. The previous agreement actually expired in 2023, but they are soon going to be renewed. As far as large international companies that are present in Bulgaria, we do have them, and then there is an European Works Council established in international companies because they are big corporations with head offices in other countries. So right now I have described to you the current situation, but I would like to add some words about best practices, and we included a section on best practices. So we have collective agreements on the airport, especially in Varna and Sofia, where the collective agreements are present. And there is a dialogue between employees and employers. And also, employees are engaged in defining some working conditions at the airports. But there are also some challenges. Back in 2025, there were some protests, and this indicates that the current mechanisms are not deemed to be sufficient. In this slide, I am showing you a section of our research findings. And I'd like to say a few words about this. So far, I haven't told you about the results of our research. So these are the guarantees of employee working rights that apply to the workers in the aviation sector. So this is all based on the documents that regulate social dialogue. And we have heard good feedback about the relationship between employees and employers. And they provided feedback in many different aspects. For example, agreeing some common way forward, being open to discussion, being open to change the way of thinking, and what values are important. For me, it made a huge impression on me that nearly 93% of respondents said that communication should be improved. And also we asked about what was happening over the last 3 years, and sometimes the respondents told us there was the lack of understanding, but somehow the parties tried to find ways to work together and find a solution. If they cannot find a solution at the company level, they refer the case to a national institution for mediation and arbitrage. These are our findings on internal dispute resolution, and it clearly shows that sometimes there is the lack of understanding and communication between parties. And 95% people stated that they are neutral. So the communication is neither bad nor good. Now a few words about internal dispute resolution. Some companies have an internal committee for dispute resolution, and that body is composed of trade union members, for example. This is our mediation mechanism. We have described in detail our mediation mechanisms. We also highlighted the barriers and difficulties that our sector is facing. We can see there is limited participation of employees in smaller companies. Also, the technology is advancing so fast and it requires people to reskill or upskill. Also, there aren't enough funds for training. So these problems could be resolved by better information provided to employees, better consultations conducted among employees. So we need a stronger social dialogue in our sector. And we have come up with some recommendations for the better dialogue in air transport in Bulgaria. So we need to strengthen social dialogue structures. We need to also promote earlier involvement of social partners in decision making. We need to improve collective bargaining coverage, so there should be more collective agreements. Okay, let me conclude my presentation by saying that the Bulgarian constitution has clauses that regulate collective agreements. However, the coverage with a collective agreement is not uniform in our country. And also the European Green Deal poses a lot of pressures on the employers. And sometimes they just forget about their duties to inform employees early on. And they should, because we want the sector to thrive and to develop successfully. Now I am very keen on hearing the reports from your countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabriela, for the excellent presentation you gave us. It was really interesting. Not only it was astonishing and perfect under the format, but it was really interesting because what we have seen is that there is a common behavior and common feeling among workers on what should be improved to enhance the social dialogue in aviation. Thank you very much. And I would like to talk about Italy. And sorry, I didn't prepare a PowerPoint, but you don't lose anything because it won't be as beautiful as the one made by the Bulgarian friends. So I would like to talk about the aviation market in Italy. The aviation market in Italy is an important market. You can imagine the size and the shape of Italy. With a big island, the populated island means that aviation is the main connecting between different regions of Italy. All the southern and the islands are connected with the center, with the north, just by aviation. Italy is a country of around 60 million of inhabitants, and we have something like 240 million of passengers every year. So there is not only a main it's not only a touristic hub, but it's also a big, we have also a big internal market. Our research was mainly focused on the handlers and the airlines. We have also an important aeronautical industry factories, but they are not in the center of Italy. They are somewhere in the south and somewhere in the north. And they work both for the Air Force. They produce military aircraft, but they also produce a part of the big civilian aircraft. In Grottaglie, they produce parts for Boeing and Airbus, while in Cagliari, that is next to Milan in northern Italy, they produce military aircraft for the Italian Air Force and for other Air Forces. So these parts were not included in the research. To be honest, not only because it was hard for us to be allowed to enter to contact them, but also because they don't have the same agreement, the same CLA of aviation they have. They are producers, they use another kind of CLA. It's in Italy, we have different CLA for different branch of activities. For the factories, there is a CLA and called metal mechanics. That means people working and assembling aircraft, while for other fields of aviation, like handlers, airlines, air traffic management, and National Supervisory Authority, there is a sectorial CLA that is called aviation CLA. So our research was mainly focused on this sectorial CLA. What we have seen, you know that the main Italian airline that was once called Alitalia made bankrupt, and it was replaced by another airline called ITA Airways. The ownership of this airline was transferred from the state to Lufthansa Group. It was finalized last year after 4 or 5 years of bargaining. So now the main Italian airline is part of Lufthansa Group. And the main airline, the most important Italian airline flying in Italy is a low-cost carrier, is Ryanair. But they don't have the same model of industrial relation we have in Ita Airways. About the handlers, we have a competitive market in the airports. So in every airport, there are usually 3 different handlers. And every 2 or 3 years, there is a call of interest for new handlers to replace. This is done following the EU regulation on the sector. And this has an important, let's say, impact not only on the remuneration level, but also on the social organization of the workers. What we have explored, we have analyzed is the socioeconomic impact of aviation or transport in Italy, which are the labor conditions of the industrial relation in aviation, which could be under the system of worker participation, a new model for these social partners, and which are the some tool they could use to improve this kind of relation among them. At the end of that, we submitted the questionnaire to 40 delegates. 20 were coming from the unions and 20 were from the airlines and from the handlers. We have some interesting results in that. So, as I told you, start from the first point, air transport in Italy is important not only because of the internal market, but also because of the international market. The main airport in Italy is Roma Fiumicino. Last year, they had something like 52 millions of passengers moving using that airport. That means a whole country moving using Fiumicino Airport. But also in Northern Italy, we have Milano Airport that is based on 2 different airports, that is Milano Linate and Milano Malpensa, and altogether they have almost the same number of passengers of Roma Fiumicino. So we can say that the 2 main cities in Italy that are Roma and Milano together have a market of around 95 million of passengers per year. The other main airports, there is some around, let's say, 4 or 5 airports that move more than 10 million of passengers per year, that are Venezia, Bergamo, Catania, Napoli, and probably Torino, but I'm not sure. So we have something like 41, 42 airports open to airlines. And you can imagine how this is important not only for the business, but also for the cargo and so on. We have a big industry using cargo airports in Milano Malpensa, in Bergamo, and in Bologna. And we have a lot of food delivering starting from southern Italy to northern Europe. From Sicily, a lot of aircraft, cargo flights moving raw food, raw vegetables to the market of the Northern Europe. So air transport in Italy is probably one of the main sector. It has been estimated they contributed to around 4% of the gross national product, GDP, and notwithstanding that, despite that, there is a very, very low level of social protection for workers. This was not a surprise because we know that the market was really fragmented, but it was a surprise to see how that impacted on the workers. Especially among handlers, there is a swift rotation of workers because the time schedule with the shift starting at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. and ending 2 a.m. Requests a lot of people to be hired on a seasonal basis. And a lot of young people start working in that field for the first 2 or 3 years of their working career, then they move to different sectors. So there is a swift relation, but there is also youth unionism, the participation of young people to the union. That is something different what is going on in other industrial sector of Italy. In aviation, is the only sector where young people is actively participating to the union, not only as a member, but as a leader of the union, local leader of the union, sometimes national leader of the unions, because they understood quickly that they were in the first, the front line with the company, towards the company. There were no other people protecting them, so they have to swiftly arrange to protect themselves. And this is very important. We have called that youth unionism. And I think this is a point of strength for the future of, let's say, of the protecting social workers' rights for the future of this activity. In very few industry, there is a code of practice. A code of practice that means establish regulation with among social partners and unions. The main unions in Italy, the big confederation, are not too strong in aviation. We have 3 big confederations in Italy. They are mainly strong among public workers and industry factories, but in aviation there is a strong autonomous unionism. FastConfsal, that is the union we belong and we represent, is a confederation of independent autonomous unions working in the transportation sector. We're starting now we have been very good in enlarging the size of the aviation sector, the aviation branch of this fast sector, because we started as a union of air traffic controllers and people working in air traffic management, and we expanded our activity to handlers and to airlines, because we gave the opportunity to be directly represented to the works without the interference of the big confederation. And we experience a lot of young people, some young people that is actively participating, actively working inside the union. This is very important. FastConfsal is very strong among trained workers, and we hope to become as strong as that field, in aviation. And we want to expand the activity of the union. We want to expand the instrument of the union to have a smooth, that doesn't mean to always say yes to a company, but a smooth, a honest exchange of opinion among workers and the company. The fragmentation of the trade unions is what we are going to fight. We have been working to merge a small autonomous union inside the FastConfsal, allowing them to remain independent, but to be fully represented at a higher level. And this model is becoming very, very attractive for them. And we have a lot of one of the main problem is the different age and the different let's say scholarization among the workers representative and the company representative. Most of the company representative specialize in social dialogue are people coming from the university, but they don't have a first-hand experience in the real work. While the majority of our representative or the union representative have a high school degree, so few of them attended the university, and but they have a first-hand experience of the real work. So sometimes it's difficult to create a common understanding among the two parts because we have a different background. But I think that giving to the parts a model to establish a clear and honest exchange of opinion is the best way to overcome this gap. another thing is that in Italy there is not too much trust, too much confidence in the alternative dispute resolution means. We have not only at the state level, there is something called ufficio del lavoro, that means a place where people can ask to defend its own right in case of disputes with the company. But there is also, since a few years, since I think 10 years, not more than 10 years, a kind of private mediation, but workers are not confident with this way. They say these means are not really protecting the workers' right. What is good that there is still a strong feeling of independence in the legal system, in the judiciary. The judiciary is still seen as an independent body, protecting the rights of the worker in case of problem, and most workers used to appeal the court in case of problems, while in other countries we know it's not the same. And this is good because the workers have the perception that the judges are independent, but this is a weakness for the union because most of people don't see the same independence in some unions. They say that some unions too deeply involved with the company, and they don't want. This is why we have in some field a lower percentage of workers affiliated to the unions. I don't have the exact data and the sharp data about which is the percentage of people affiliated to the union in aviation, but we can say that while in air traffic management is around 70-75%, and the handlers is also stronger. In other fields like airlines and staff workers, it's stronger among the pilots and crew members, but it's lower among the staff workers. This creates a different level of protection. In Italy, there is no possibility to have individual or a contract for this kind, for these big airlines, but it's used only by smaller airlines to have individual contract with the workers. But most of them, they don't have a real union in smaller companies or in low-cost carrier. They don't have real union protecting their rights. This is the main problem we have in aviation. This model is becoming more attractive for the employer, and we have to fight that because what is attractive for the employer not always is good for employees. I swear that next time I will provide you with a good presentation, a good PowerPoint, and made like the one produced by Gabriela and the other friends from Bulgaria. Which were the results of the questionnaire analysis? The participation analysis, we have, as you probably have done the same model, we have divided the people answering in two different clusters, the cluster of the employer, the cluster of the employees. For the employer, it was harder to have written participation. I had to call each of them by phone to have the answer because they don't want to have they don't want to show themselves because they are not allowed by the board of administrators to give this kind of information. I don't know why. Sometimes they think that the best way to protect the right of the company is to maintain the secret on their activity. I don't know. It's a different way of working. And we have seen that there is a difference in age, a difference in scholarship, but what is the same is that both sides say communication is not working among the parts, and we have to work to improve communication. So we ask ourselves if there are a good, let's say, model, good laws from national law and the European Union law, why this kind of model is not implemented. So we understood that the main effort has to be done is to make I would say class, but say make training for the two sides to develop and implement and develop this kind of communication channel. Probably one of the results we will bring from our analysis of the questionnaire and will be reported in the in the recommendation to strengthen the aviation social dialogue at European national level will be this one. We didn't discover by ourselves, but I've seen that this is common in other countries, to make a training among people, union people, and people from the company to improve the communication. Once the communication will be established, it will be easier to understand which are the friction points and which are the common points, and to work to reduce the friction point and to have a smooth social dialogue among the membership. The other problem is why is it possible in Italy to enhance the use of alternative dispute resolution means? What we have understood is that the time scale of the judiciary, that means when a worker appeal to a court for the resolution of a problem, it takes some years, and sometimes this is also a good option for the people in charge of social dialogue inside the company, because that means that this won't be my problem, will be my problem of next one coming. And this is why also airlines, also handlers, and also the providers are not too convinced to use this alternative dispute resolution means. And this is another result. We have to ask the European Union to produce a regulation that I don't say make mandatory this use, because we don't want nothing to be mandatory, just anything should be freely chosen by the parts. But to give a preferential channel to the use of these alternative resolution bodies, like it was done in the, we studied the Irish case. And this is good because if we remove the obstacle that can hinder the possibility to use this alternative resolution means, it means that both parties have the necessity to find a real productive way to communicate among themselves. And if they are forced to communicate among themselves, we are sure they will find the way to solve the problems they will face in the future. At the end, the experience of the COVID and the experience of the recent wars, not only in Ukraine, but also in the Middle East, with the shift of the traffic patterns in Europe, means that we should establish a contingency way of face, let's say, new problems, new problems. Let's say that will arise during the work activity, because aviation is a sector fast moving, not only because aircraft are flying faster, but also because things change quickly, and we have to be ready to find a solution to new market challenges and new traffic challenges, not only in the field of air traffic management, but only in all fields of aviation. I think I said almost everything. If Giorgio thinks it's enough, otherwise we can develop further the report on the Italian air transport sector. Otherwise, I will be happy to hear something from Poland.
Dzień dobry, jeszcze
Giancarlo,
raz
sì, io
się przywitam.
penso proprio di sì, non so se magari gli altri...
I think that yes, you have completely presented the Italian report, and if there are questions, then let's have them. But if not, let's give the floor to Poland.
Tak, jeszcze raz się przywitam. Dzień dobry.
So hello, I would like to say hello.
Thank you.
Tak, nasz raport krajowy,
Our national report
że tak powiem, uwzględnił szczególnie takie
takes into account this difference in handling employment contracts. Right now, in airlines,
gdzie może nawet wszystkie są
that operate in our country, employment contracts have been replaced with B2B contracts, which we believe is not good. In Polish airlines, since 2014, when 100% of people had employment contracts, right now just 20% have employment contracts. All the other ones have B2B contracts. In Ryanair, since 2019, almost everyone works on the basis of a B2B contract. Only Wizz Air employs people against an employment contract. Let me now speak about the employees in the aviation sector, apart from the air crews and pilots. So most of these people have employment contracts. So let me tell you about the B2B contracts among air crews. So, for example, yesterday, 600 employees subscribed to a letter to the LOT, Polish airline management. And in this letter, they said they are overloaded with work, that sometimes they need to work 14 days in a row without a break. So, well, of course, they are not employees, they are individual businesses, but they are being worked above their capacity. So we are afraid that it's not safe anymore. And we are trying to find a way to reach our government so that it establishes some limits, so that work 14 days in a row is no longer possible. Okay, now moving on to social dialogue. Well, the best social dialogue is exercised in airports, because they have a large trade union density and the representatives of trade unions are strong. So I believe that roughly 40% of employees at airports are members of a trade union. So in a way, this sort of forces the employer to engage in social dialogue. So this social dialogue is practiced there. But social dialogue depends on actually the current ruling party. So who rules the country? So sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. So among the handling agents, we do not have a strong trade union representation. Trade unions have fewer members in handling agent companies, and there are also fewer employees with a long-standing career, who have worked there for quite some time. And there have been attempts to eliminate trade unions from these companies altogether. And some of these handling agents managed to do that, some didn't. But social dialogue in handling agent companies is less intensive, is actually not practiced that much, and the trade unions do not have a lot of say in those companies. What the employees can do is just leave work if there is something they dislike about their job. The air traffic has increased, has revived since the pandemic. Within just 2 years, meaning from 2024 until now, we have reached a record high number of passengers. So we beat the record from 2019. And with every new month and every new year, we are seeing bigger and bigger numbers of passengers. We are going to build a large port near Warsaw, and probably this will increase air traffic in our country even more. And aviation plants that are located in Poland have a quite strong social dialogue, and they are in a far better position than handling agents or airlines. What else I could tell you about Poland and the main findings from our country? There is a huge rotation of staff in handling agent companies. And this comes due to the poor scheduling and intermittent working times. And even though people have FTE, so full-time equivalent, the work is really hard. And people just leave work. They cannot endure these conditions for long, so they can't even last 2 or 3 years. They leave. And people simply move elsewhere. So this is a barrier to trade union development.
What else can I say? Maybe anyone has any questions. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Yes, Robert, thank you for your presentation. I would like to know if in Poland the use of alternative dispute resolution means like mediators, internal mediator or external mediator is frequent, or it's just in very few cases?
Well, a mediator is an external mediator. There is a list of mediators, and trade unions and employers may, first, they agree on the name of the mediator, but from my perspective, I think rather poorly of the institution of the mediator. Let me explain why. Because it is an employer who pays the mediator. If the employer pays the mediator, well, in advance, we can say that in a way the mediator is slightly on the side of the payer, right? So we are not satisfied with this institution, with the solution. And like in Italy, we have bad experiences with taking matters to court because it simply takes a long time. So the initiative in which we would look for a different way of addressing problems in our contacts with employers, we are very much interested in other options, simply some other solutions.
About not only about the time scale, but the trust the workers have in the judiciary.
Well, in general, there is trust in the judiciary system. Yes, I would say it is at a good level. But unfortunately, courts are overloaded, overburdened, and the average time of proceedings in the labor court is between 2 and 3 years. That's the average time.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Thank you. And I hope that the delegates from Montenegro and Romania are available now to give a presentation about their country. In case they are not available, we should make now the break to allow them to be ready after the break. What do you think about?
Jak najbardziej można by kawę zrobić.
Absolutely. Maybe it is a good moment to take a break, like a short break for coffee or something. Yeah.
I
Okay,
really
let's make
need
the
a coffee. So we can anticipate the break now. And we
a
plan to have
mezzogiorno direi,
Ok.
Giancarlo, fino a mezzogiorno.
Perfetto. See you at noon, 12 sharp. See you then.
German, are you ready to restart?
Okay, I see German has given a thumb up, so we are ready to start this second part of this second year kickoff meeting with you. I hope that some friend from Romania is now ready to give the presentation about the country.
Giancarlo, scusa, aspetta un attimo, non ti sentivo, non so se era già attiva la traduzione.
Bună ziua! Mă auziți bine?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me well? Can you hear me?
We hear you. You can go.
Ok. Mulțumesc! Astăzi eu voi prezenta.
So, today I would like to present the report prepared by Marius Voicu from the TuRning trade unions. He is absent now because he's on his holidays. I'm the author of the report, and unfortunately he cannot participate in this online meeting, so I will try to present his report. So, let me begin. As you know, and as it's been presented in the report, the aviation transportation sector in Romania is very significant for the economy. It is one of the most important parts of Romanian economy because it is important from the perspective of international commerce, tourism, and business. As for contribution to GDP, it is up to 1%, 04, 06, up to 1% of GDP. As for the difficult part, if we take into account our most important airline, TuRning, which is the national carrier, national airline, we have many problems in terms of industrial or relations, so relations between employees and employers. Unfortunately, in the last 10-15 years, there was the entire line of managers which carried out a big restructuring. There were plenty of changes, and our national airline cannot address or handle various losses in terms of taxes. There are some tax losses, and basically the situation is as follows. Employees are very displeased with the situation, dissatisfied, and they created different trade unions, so they are joining different trade unions. They are trying to solve these problems via trade unions. So, I don't want to talk too much about the national airline, but as for the structure of companies from the aviation sector in Romania, we have different carriers, both private and national carriers. And as for the national carrier, it is called TuRning, which plays a strategic role on national routes and international routes, but they have chronic financial problems, and unfortunately their share in the market has been shrinking. And it is still happening. It is an ongoing process. As for the internal market, we have low-cost carriers as well. The most important among them is Wizz Air, which has a very good position, operates in Bucharest, Cluj, and Craiova, and Ryanair is second, quite a big share in our market as well, and these airlines generate the biggest number of passengers and the best prices. In Romania, we also have like Lufthansa, Turkish Airlines, LOT, Polish Airlines. As for the Polish LOT Airlines, it has numerous flights on a single day, and it is a very important airline in our context. And other operators are cargo carriers, and mostly there are dedicated cargo airplanes exported by DHL, UPS, and sometimes there are charter flights and transportation capacity. Well, so it is. As for the national airline in Bucharest, we also have the state operator, which is present in Aricoanda International Airport, and Auren in Laico, which is also an international airport. These are both airports in Bucharest. As for management of airports, these companies are present at airports in Cluj, Iași, Timișoara. These airports are managed under PPP, public-private partnerships, or by local governments. When it comes to low-cost airlines, Wizz Air, Ryanair are present in our markets. So what are the current challenges that we are facing? Development of our sector is limited here by the fact that there are problems with carriers who have very limited financial resources. And as for Aricoanda Airport, we have very limited space there, not much place as for the most important hour slots. And in some airports, we need to develop and expand the airports. There is a project on the table focused on the design of Aricoanda in Bucharest. So the work on that expansion started, but it is going to take a year or two. And provided that there are financial resources for this particular project. We have problems with shortages of qualified personnel throughout the entire Romanian economy. We come across the same problem actually because we are not able to find qualified employees in all branches of like the regular normal economy. And as for aviation traffic, there is a shortage of pilots, but also engineers, and competences are absolutely crucial here. And it is simply the problem arising from the fact that in other EU countries there are higher salaries.
Also, we need to retain our competitiveness because we compete against Warsaw or Budapest. And we must be competitive. Well, when it comes to the costs, we have very low profit margins, so the prices of fuel are growing. Also, in the pandemic, we incurred a lot of debt. So right now, our airlines are not profitable. But there are also geopolitical problems on top of all of that. But also the political situation is evolving all the time. We are interested in protecting the working conditions in the sector. Also, let me tell you about the workforce in the aviation sector. These are people with high skills, professionals, and they work in this sector. We have mostly employment contracts against which people work. So the crew, air crew, the technical crew, and the ground crews, they all have employment contracts in place. But also some temporary contracts are used, but also atypical contracts are also in use, especially with respect to younger pilots. Also with respect to the air crew, so flight attendants, for example. So they are offered specific time contracts, so temporary contracts. When it comes to low-cost lines, they put a lot of pressure on the pilots and on other employees. They offer conditions which are not always satisfactory and never beneficial. So they usually attract just the young workers who are just starting their career and agree to less favorable working terms. As far as handling agents are concerned, people are usually employed against a short-term contract, or they are employed by temporary agencies. And also there are some technical people, technical personnel, and there is revolution, IT revolution and AI revolution. So a lot of people work on the basis of civil law contracts, or they are offered specific time contracts, temporary contracts. Okay, now about the demographic profile. The air crew is subject to strict regulations. Of course, they need licenses and they need to undergo medical checks. So most of the employees are men. And these are people usually employed by the Bulgarian airline TuRning, but they also work for low-cost lines, and this is where usually younger personnel is employed. And now, air crew is the most varied group of workers, and we have quite a lot of females, so women in this group, in this professional group, and the working conditions differ between the normal airlines, let's say, standard airlines, and low-cost airlines. So, as far as technical personnel is concerned, engineers, licensed technicians, they are very crucial for the security. And so you need to obtain certain certificates from EASA. And there is a shortage of personnel in this sector. And also there is a brain drain, and the workforce is aging. So that causes a lot of tension and pressures. And the last group of workers is the ground handling crews, and this includes dispatchers, security personnel, handling personnel. So this group of people, this professional group is subject to a lot of outsourcing, and they are unfortunately forced to accept poor working conditions. So the working conditions usually are stable and conform to the standards at public authorities. This usually depends. And I'm now speaking about the airport staff. And the staff is subject to quite a lot of rotation, and people migrate also a lot. Romanian pilots and flight attendants, but also engineers, are actively poached by airlines from Europe, Western Europe, and Asia as well, particularly recently. And they are attracted because these airlines offer salaries which are 2 or 3 times higher, and also they have better career opportunities. And this makes the shortage of air crews even more acute in our country. But there is also internal migration, and there is also inflow of migrant workers from abroad. So right now, at the managerial level or at the specialist level, and IT positions are occupied by mobile workers and foreign workers. Now let's look at the general working conditions. We have a comparative analysis against other sectors in our economy. Okay, let's cover salaries first. So the salaries for specialists with licenses, so pilots, engineers, air controllers, are above the national average, and they are 4 times higher. But often the level is lower than the salaries in Western Europe. For ground crews and for younger flight attendants, the salaries are close to the national average or slightly higher. The working time is, of course, atypical. Some people need to work shifts, some people need to work at night. The total number of hours that the air crew can work is regulated by EASA regulations, but the actual working time is sometimes different. So these people are at a higher risk of being exhausted at work, of being tired. So the personal safety standards are high due to very strict EASA regulations and ICAO regulations. But there are also some specific topics for this sector. For example, managing the exhaustion risk. There is a pressure of operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And also there is security and cybersecurity that are very important topics in this sector. Recently, some investments have been made in this sector. Unfortunately, there is a strong rotation among personnel. This is the reality in the market. All employees, especially the ground crews, but also the air crews, work on the basis of EASA regulations and other aviation-specific regulations. So, security is a crucial matter because it's safety for the passengers. What is the general picture of industrial relations in this sector? So there is a huge fragmentation, and there are also various different structures of employment present in these companies. How long do I have? Because I do not want to monopolize this meeting, but I still would like to say a few things. So how much time do I have?
Ați înțeles întrebarea, vă rog?
I think there is no limit because it's really interesting. So you can go on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mulțumesc, perfect. Deci, actorii principali sunt sindicatele,
All right, what are the key actors in social dialogue? Well, one of them is the trade union. So there is a trade union of air crews and pilots in civil aviation, and this is the main trade union of the pilots and air crews in our country. There is also SNPR Romania. That's the trade union that represents air crews. In Wizz Air, there are also some trade unions. And we also have trade unions in TuRning and Romața, our national airlines. There is a trade union I represent, actually. And in TuRning, there have been some changes. And soon there will be a new trade union formed, and it's going to be called the Trade Union of Technicians from TuRning. So this trade union will bring together some other smaller trade unions. So there will be some transformations. And we have also larger federations and confederations of trade unions. One of them is the National Confederation of Trade Unions called Cartel Alpha. And there are also some smaller trade unions that are members of BNS. We also have employer associations. For example, there is a Romanian Association of Air Carriers, and it's the key trade association representing airlines, and they are engaged in social dialogue regarding social policies. There is also an association of airports in Romania, and they represent the operators of airports. But also airlines have also individual associations, and the key players are TuRning, Wizz Air, and Ryanair. What are the negotiation tools that are available to us as part of social dialogue? And what are the safety measures? Well, the trade union density is varied in our countries. It's higher among pilots in TuRning and Romața and in airports, roughly 60%, but the density is low or very low among air crews and ground crews. For example, in low-cost airlines, the percentage is really low, and in service providers, it's roughly 10 to 30%, and it's due to high rotation of staff. And also, staff have only temporary contracts, and they also resist joining a trade union. So, what is the coverage with collective agreements? So, we don't have a national collective agreement covering all country. At the company level, there are some collective agreements in place. Now, we are moving to the current trends and challenges in industrial relations in our country. Well, there is the social dumping, and there is this trend of outsourcing some services. So if there are services considered non-material, for example, ground handling, security, cleaning, and these services are outsourced to companies that usually offer lower salaries and poor working conditions. And this is a concerning thing. What else is also a challenge? Conflict resolution. Our sector is subject to many shocks, pandemic, crises, high fuel prices. These are all sources of conflict. And so there is often a need to negotiate. For example, negotiate the voluntary resignation from work, and also there are negotiations about the mergers. There is also a shortage of pilots, and in some segments, the professional groups such as pilots have more bargaining power because there are few of them, and therefore they can get higher salaries and better working conditions, and maybe it's good for the trade unions.
So, a short summary of the national system of participation of employees in the aviation sector. Here, a short description as for the legal framework in Romania. on participation of employees. And we have the labor code here. It is the most important law which specifies employees' rights. The law on social dialogue regulates setting up trade unions and organizations of employers. The law on commercial partnerships. It is about different forms of partnerships and companies like limited liability company and others. There are also EU directives. I'm not going to name them now. What are links with trade union negotiations and participation mechanisms? So here we don't have this rigid framework. Well, we have like a trade union as the main channel of participation, and the representative of the trade union on the basis of the law is a default body responsible for informing, consulting and organizing negotiations as for collective bargaining and temporary mixed committees, procedures of ad hoc consultations. If there are no trade unions somewhere, or if there are no recognized trade unions somewhere, in companies like that, the law to be informed, to be consulted, well, it's not executed actually. There might be formal rights of the employees, but there is no representation there via which they could exercise their rights. So it means it is a deficit of representation.
In Romania, and I've seen some common problem between Romania and other countries. One problem you should face in the Eastern Europe is the draining of technical resources from Western Europe, but not only from Western Europe. That this one is going on also in Western Europe with people going towards the Middle East. And sadly, this is nothing we can do. We can stop it because it's the free market. So we don't want to talk with that. We have to highlight this problem, and we don't have to provide solution to this problem because it's out of our range. We have to consider the situation of the workers in the country, and we have to keep the attention on the social rights of the workers in the country to maintain a high level of safety and high level of performance inside aviation. It's not possible to lower the standard in aviation because it's a drift to disaster. We don't want that. This is why we think that the role of the unions in keeping social rights means highlighting the role of the union keeping social rights means highlighting the importance of maintaining the importance of the safety, increasing the safety. Safety is not paramount. Safety is obtained by working and by giving the right remuneration to people. I don't know if the delegate from Montenegro is available now. Giorgio, you know something?
Penso che Philip abbia qualche problema tecnico.
There is a technical problem I mean, on the side of the Montenegro representative. So we should move on, I guess. If it will be possible technically to hear, I will let you know.
And all the documents will be made available for you on the website. So I encourage each of you to compare the situation in this other country to the situation in the other country of the project. And this is the part where we have to talk about the comparison of the results. But we did it at the beginning, and we've seen a common structure of the problem of the unions. Sadly, we don't have any report from the other side of the world, from the employer, and not now. And we can start to think about the formulation of the final document. The formulation of the final document, my idea is already drafted a paper. It's a short paper, 15 pages, something like that, with kind of base on which we can work. The idea is to highlight the importance, the structure of the new document we will submit after the approval of all the members to the European Union will be structured in this way. Initially, it will be given overview of the importance of the air transportation in the world, in Europe, and in the analyzed country. So we will show to the European Union that it's not a waste of money to study this sector, but it's very important because connecting people is one of the main tasks of the European Union. We have to connect people to avoid the problems and to allow people to know each other and to have a first-hand experience of how is living in other country to improve in all Europe the way of life. So after the analysis of the air transportation sector in Europe, I will suggest to present the research method, how it was structured, how the questionnaire was created after the Krakow conference, and how it was submitted to a small but significant number of respondents in any country. This is not a wide-scale research, it's a very, very focused research, so it's not important to have a large number of people answering this questionnaire. And then we will show the difference not only among the countries, but among the two clusters we imaginated, the cluster of the workers and the cluster of the employers. And I will focus mainly on the problem among the parts in the communication field and the possibility to enhance the use of alternative dispute resolution means. And then we will have a focus on each of the 5 countries. Each of the 5 countries will be shortly, but quite completely analyzed for the air transport and for this point of view. And then we will, the most important part will be drafting some recommendation. The recommendation, I think at the moment, what I've understood, the common feeling is to train people, especially people from the union, when there is people with the lower scholarization, to the use of all the possibility given by the European and national laws to protect the right of the workers, but also to allow the company to have a smooth dialogue with workers in order to be able not only to face the daily activity, but also for out of routine activities. I think if you have any suggestion on how to improve this draft idea of the new document, it will be very, very appreciated. I will suggest you to start reading the 15-page document I sent yesterday or 2 days ago to Giorgio. And this is at the moment not public, just for our consultation. It's not a document to be uploaded on the website because it's an internal document. But if you don't disagree on that, I think we can work on that to produce the final paper.
Bună, mă auziți? Ok. Pot să vorbesc?
Okay, Constantin, Marius, sorry. We hear you if you want to give your point of view.
Sorry? N-am înțeles ce a spus. Ok. Bun, apropo de dialogul social. După cum știți, eu sunt, mă rog, reprezentant.
So I'd like to say that when it comes to social dialogue, I represent Cartel Alpha, and it is the trade union called Cartel Alpha. I am here. I am here to represent the aviation sector because that's where I work. And we are part of the program, which at the moment is taking place thanks to EU funds. So the point is, it is the program which is a 5-year program supported by EU funds, and the role of the program is to improve social dialogue, actually at all levels. For 2 years now, we've been participating in this program, and there is the entire cycle of training sessions, and I am one of the people who organize these trainings. And we have 3 more years within this program, and we assumed that by the end of the program, social dialogue will be very much developed and improved, and unionization will be improved. As for my personal observation, as I could see, thanks to direct contact with a vast number of trade unions that belong to our confederation, Cartel Alpha, Confederation of Trade Unions, and many trade unionists from our confederation participated in these trainings because it is a very well developed program of trainings. It focuses on the trainings for trade unionists, and I mean here not only the trade union leaders, but also regular members of trade unions, so a regular employee belonging to the trade union. And what are my observations? In these trainings, we have something called ABC of trade unions. Then communication, negotiations, bargaining, labor organization, health and safety. So these are like initial modules or initial trainings. There will be 80 of them in total, and afterwards we are going to organize trainings which will be more advanced, which will focus on economic and financial analysis, strengthening the collective bargaining. These will be courses or trainings that, from our perspective, will help regular trade unionists to evolve, because our final goal is to improve social dialogue through training members of trade unions and trade union leaders. And all these steps are absolutely necessary.
I tried to explain that earlier, that I've made an observation. And there is more and more people, young workers, who do not have any direct contact with trade unions. And for this reason, they are surprised to see all the different possibilities that trade unions have and all the different types of activities that trade unions engage in. And the people who have knowledge on this are not young. We have more and more trade unionists who have reached senior years, and they still remain within the trade union, not only because they don't want to leave. This is because there are not many new people joining. And also, they need special skills to do this work. And I can see this very clearly because I meet a lot of colleagues, and this could become a clear issue for us. Our confederation, Cartel Alpha, has done the homework, and we know we're going to face this problem. So we decided to launch this system of training courses so that young people can realize what benefits are offered by trade unions. For example, you are not only in a better position if you are a member, but this also allows you to have a platform to voice your opinions. My colleague, Cătălin Popescu, presented the report from our country, and in this report, he highlighted that there is a very strong rotation in the aviation sector, the migration, we would even call it. Also, our national airline, TuRning, operates in our country. I used to be an employee of that company. Now I am retired, but I still remain in touch with some of the colleagues from my former work. So I can confirm what Mr. Popescu said in his presentation of the report. Our national airline, TuRning, has performed a transformation. So there is this technical part, but also there is this main part. And there will be just the technical part was reduced to that extent that only people who do repairs will remain. Well, this might be a good move, because if they have a good manager and if they have a person who knows how important that part of operation is and will know how important good management is, then perhaps if this MRO is performed, then we may have no problems whether there is not going to be a shortage of workplaces. But in order to achieve that, we need to change our mindset and change the mindset of the managers. And these MROs need to realize all the benefits that are available. So that things start developing well. What are the other challenges we're struggling with? Air traffic controllers. Recently, faced a difficult situation. There was a problem in Romața airline. Romața became the topic of headlines in the press.
oameni care au absolvit
So Romața is the supplier of navigation services, and some people completed a training on air traffic control. And when they completed the course, they thought they would be employed by Romața, but Romața didn't want to hire them.
sunteți controlori de trafic.
So
Sunt convins că știți.
let me tell you what the situation is. So, some of you are air traffic controllers, so you know the situation. In order to work in this profession, one of the things you need to do is you need to pass the test. Just pass the air control test. It's called FIEST.
Și care îți dă posibilitatea
And
după aceea, în baza
once you pass the test, after completing the training, you can become an air traffic controller. And in Romania, the Technical Aviation School
cu concursul și, mă rog, concursul pentru că altfel n-aș fi să obțin aprobarea autorității aeronautice române,
together
a creat un astfel de
with Aviation Authority in Romania
curs care
developed a training course. So this course was meant to replace this course was meant to be offered to the people who wanted to become air traffic controllers. And what they promised is that the people would not need to pass the air control test.
air traffic control selection. Asta este numele testului complet.
So this test is called First European Air Control Selection. So this was a big problem because Romața was going to hire these air traffic controllers in an illegal way, because in order to be an air controller you need to pass the test, and Romața wanted to hire people without the test. So actually these people were not hired after all, and the Romața was taken to court, and the judge who examined the case issued a ruling, and according to the ruling, the employees were right. So Romața appealed against this decision, and now we're waiting for the decision of the court of the second instance. But there was also another issue. As you may know, Romania purchased
pandemiei. Și se pare că cei care au decis să cumpărăm dozele
vaccinations during COVID pandemic.
din cauza asta am luat mai mult.
So the persons who placed the order miscalculated the volumes, so we purchased more vaccinations than we needed. So the cost that Romania should pay for these vaccinations is huge. And well, negotiations were held, but with no effect. So unfortunately, Romania will have to pay. So Pfizer actually pleaded for the bank accounts of Romața to be frozen, and in the end the accounts were frozen. So the situation is very complex. We are trying to find ways of unfreezing the accounts. As far as I understand, we keep campaigning and we hold conversations. For example, what are the rights of the people who were meant to be hired but were not hired? And the second case, the accounts are frozen, but there is a good prospect of the problem to be resolved. And also, the airline hired a whole team of lawyers to resolve the issue. So, as you can see, the problems in the Romanian air sector are quite severe. Okay, also, to conclude my presentation, I will tell you a few words about the security of work. The situation is getting more and more complex. We want the workplaces to be safe and secure, and we want to have a partnership relationship with the administration, with the managers, whether it's at the company level or whether it's at the national level or local government level. We want others to understand that we are all partners to social dialogue and we are not enemies, and we must come to the table and find a solution, because that's the most important thing. And the job security will depend very much on how well we can convince the trade union members that this is the crucial matter we should all be working towards. But we all must understand we are partners of social dialogue. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marius. Thank you. I was aware of the situation about the Pfizer because, I'm here on behalf of TCUC. Just yesterday, we wrote an open letter to Eurocontrol and to all the members of the Provisional Council of Eurocontrol. It is the organization that gathers the aviation authorities of all Europe, 42 member states. And the purpose of the letter was to highlight what is going on not only in Romania but also in Poland. I know there is something similar. Last year it was the same for Bosnia and Herzegovina and for Albania. All these states have had problems with external, not inside the provider, but with external actors who asked the judge to freeze the revenues for the providers. And this shows us how much it is, let's say, delicate, needing a continuous timing in the world of aviation. I hope that the problem will be solved in a very, very short time. I hope that also the problem of the colleagues that were not submitted to, didn't go under the FIST test will be solved. The situation in Romania is under scrutiny continuously by TCUC. About the common elements to be used by us in the drafting of the final report, the experience of the Romanian colleagues about the training will be highlighted because it's important. We think that despite what is going on daily, train people to know exactly which are the rights means also helping the companies to know, to let people understand which are the duties. You have rights and you have duties. This is both for work and for the companies, and each the two parts has to be aware exactly which are the rights. So this is why the training for new people, not only the union leader, but also the regular union associate, like it was going on in Romania, is the best way. It's not a matter of keeping the information secrets. It's a matter of disseminate all the information, because we are talking about a sector where the mistakes are not allowed. It's very important, both for connecting people and for the safety that we need to produce while connecting people. I think that I continue to suggest to you about reading the paper and giving us all the input you wish. And the final point we have to talk now is how to enhance the communication. At the beginning of of today's conference, Giorgio informed us about the website, the dedicated website of the project. The website of the project will be not only the place where we will inform the European Commission about what we did until today and what we will do in the next year, but it's also the place where the union could the place that the union should use to inform the associate about the rights of the worker, the rights that are stated in the European documents and belonging to each of us. So as soon as the reports will be completely translated, as we saw, and there is some little part that has to be yet to be translated, they will be uploaded on that website, and we will ask each of you to spread the information about this website to the associate and to the general population of workers. The more we know of each other, the best it is. I don't know if Giorgio wants to add something about this point. In this case, I am available to giving him the floor. Giorgio, you want to add something?
Ciao, grazie Giancarlo e grazie a tutti per...
Yes, thank you, Giancarlo. And I'd like to say thank you everyone for presentation of your national reports. And as for dissemination of the results of our research, the website will be used as a tool to bring all the data together, the data that we have at our disposal. And this data will be used to create further materials. There are some bits of information there, like the first newsletter, the leaflet of the project. You may download it. It might be very useful to disseminate the outcome of our work. You can also use our social media. I've sent a link to you in the chat. And you can make our posts available, like share them on your social media, because dissemination of the outcomes of our work is very important, because the European Commission assesses such activities connected with dissemination of deliverables very well, because they believe it is among our most important tasks. So I do encourage you to disseminate the materials, to share them. If you do that, please send links to me so that I can see where these materials were made available or shared, or screenshots, so that we can see how they are disseminated. And wherever you share materials like that, remember to add the logo of the European Commission, because it needs to be mentioned it is financed by the European Commission. If you use the materials that we publish, there is like a heading there with the logo of the project, logo of the European Commission, and information that it is European Commission funded projects. And if you use these materials, it is good to use like the official materials to maintain a certain standard, common standard of communication, which will be cohesive and will be applied in the same way in different countries. And then if it comes to the next steps under this project, we are going to have 2 international meetings. These are consulting meetings, always online. And during these meetings, and in these meetings, we'll have Confederation, the European Confederation involved, and we'll talk about more details look and more detailed approach to sharing and disseminating materials that will be included into our final document, final materials. We suggested, or Giancarlo and Luigi suggested dates for these meetings. Could you confirm it, Giancarlo, if I remember correctly? The next meeting would be on the 15th of September. The 15th of September, international meeting, so you can write it down in your calendars. And then I'm going to send an official invitation to you when everything is 100% confirmed. But we are planning to have this meeting on the 15th of September. For me, it is a good date.
Fits well, otherwise we can move inside that week, but I think we have enough time, each of us have enough time to arrange the internal situation. And I don't remember when it was the second one because I don't find anything.
La seconda doveva essere, avevamo pensato al 27.
The other date, we were talking about the 27th of November. So please note down both dates.
I don't know if they put this meeting on Friday. Usually they don't do that, but this time they put it on Friday. So I will try to see if there is someone else going on my behalf to that meeting. But I have enough time to work on that.
Va bene, allora per il 27 novembre ci riaggiorniamo.
So as for the 27th of November, we'll talk more about that. I mean, myself and Giancarlo. But the 15th of September is the next meeting, and we'll have perhaps additional discussion between two of us about the date in November. After these two online meetings, online international session, we'll need to organize national sessions, national meetings in individual countries. We'll have like 4 months for that. So since the end of November, when the final publication is drawn up, we'll have 4 months to organize national meetings in all the countries, and then we'll have this final conference, and it will be actually held in 2027, because our project is to be completed in March or by March 2027. So we still have some time ahead of us. We are going to organize ourselves step by step, bit by bit. We are going to maintain our contact via emails. As for today's meeting, for me, I guess we've covered all of the items on the agenda, unless you want to add something, Giancarlo, unless someone has questions.
I really thank you, each of you, for the work done till now and for the work you will do from now on. What do I say? Let's hope to skip this hot summer in the best way for each of us. And we will inform the people from Bulgaria that is not attending now about the selected date for the next meeting. And that's all from me. Guys, thank you for everything. Thank you for the good job you did until now. And I hope you have a great days upcoming. See you next time.
Thank you.
Dziękuję bardzo.